I thought I would do another autumnal tag for this video. So I'm going to do the Finally Fall, I think it's called the Finally, dang it. Problem is these books don't stay open. I hate that. It's Finally Fall book tag, but it sure does not feel like it. It's like 70, it's in the 70s here. And it should not be. I mean, although fall won't be officially here until tomorrow. Or autumn, sorry. I know it's stupid the fact that why don't I just give up and just say fall. But I like the sound, as I said in a previous video, I like the sound of autumn better. I know it's weird, but I like that word better than fall. So autumn, it does not feel like autumn's here. But because it's like in the 70s and the 80s. As long as it doesn't get up to the 90s, I will tolerate. Not that I can really do anything. But hopefully by tomorrow it will start to cool down. I mean, it didn't look like it. It still looked like it would be the 80s all this month. But I want a cool Halloween, All Hallows Eve. I don't want a hot or warm Halloween. But I think we got that last year, so I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to be like autumn weather. Again, I know I should just be like, okay, just say fall. Who cares? It's just a word, but it bugs me. I like saying autumn better. But, of course, the title of this tag is fall, so. But as I'm uploading this video, I will also post the original creator of this tag in the Dropbox below. Okay, so question number 1. The air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a very vivid setting. And I said Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. And this particular book is obviously a fantasy, and it is a retelling of the 6 Swan stories by the Grimm's brothers. This is about our main character, Sorsha. She is very close with her 6 older brothers. And they kind of protect her and, really care about her and teach her. She's a bit of a tomboy because of that. And one day, their father decides, even though he said that he would never take a wife, he has met someone and has decided to get married to this woman. And Sorsha, right away, and some of her brothers, the first one realized this woman is a witch. So when they try to protect their father and protect themselves and Sorsha from this witch, she decides to turn her brothers into 6 swans, each into a swan, saying that there's nothing that Sorsha can do about it. She can't save them. But then the fairies come, and they tell Sorsha that she can save her brothers as long as she makes these particular shirts for all 6 of her brothers out of this particular material that can hurt your fingers, that can prick your fingers, and only she can do it, and she cannot speak. She must remain mute. So she sets to work on creating those sweaters. Now, the subplot of this story is that her family's kingdom is at war with another kingdom, with Britain, because this takes place in Ireland. This is like medieval Ireland. And there's also a little bit of a plot where her father's guards capture a Briton and hold him prisoner in the beginning of the book. And Sorsha, who is a healer, and she's good with herbs and taking care of people, like I guess she would be a doctor, or a doctor in training, and she heals this boy. But eventually, when she's called away to meet her new mommy, the boy who feels abandoned by Sorsha eventually runs away. And that later comes back on her when she is traveling. Well, the fairies have told her it's time for her to move on and leave her homeland. She runs into the brother of the boy who she had tried to save. And he, wanting information on his brother, he kidnaps her and holds her prisoner until she reveals information. But she has to remain mute and make these shirts, or the curse will be, she won't be able to lift it. And this is such a beautiful, the setting of the story, the way it's described is so beautiful, and I would just love to explore this area. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Ireland, but Juliet Marillion is so good with descriptions, and you just want to get lost in this world. It's so beautiful, and you get the emotions and the connection that Saoirse feels through her home into this land, and I don't know what else to say about it. It's so beautifully described. Okay, so question number 2. Nature is beautiful, but also dying. Name a beautifully written novel, but deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. Now, I don't read a lot of books that deal with that, although, I mean, I do read books that, have that in there, like, the Song of Ice and Fire series. There's plenty of death in those books, and, but not anything that is where death is the main focus, because even the Song of Ice and Fire series, the main focus is all these people are trying to go after the throne, the Iron Throne, which I don't get the appeal of that throne. I mean, okay, I get it because it means you have power, you can rule the land and everything, but or at least can't they make the chair more comfortable? But I guess they have that whole mentality of you shouldn't be comfortable when you're the king because it'll make you lazy. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what, that's what I heard. But, anyway, so one I ended up choosing is The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters. This is a book about, this is set in 1922, post-World War I. And this mother and daughter have to take in some guests into their home to live with them as boarders. And immediately the daughter, what is her name? Frances immediately forms a connection with the wife and falls in love with her. But of course, the wife, she's a wife, she's married. And the guy's kind of a jerk. And it's like about them dealing with life during this time, how them coping with it, but it's also about this beautiful relationship between these women, but it's a forbidden relationship. Not just because she's a married woman, but this is during a time when being gay was not acceptable, at all. Like today, at least, it's acceptable to be gay. Not everybody, people frown upon it still, but it was like, I believe, in my personal opinion, it was a lot worse. Of course, I'm a straight woman, so I don't know, but, people didn't accept it at all. And it's such a heartbreaking, tragic romance for these two women, and the ending is very bittersweet. I don't remember if by the end of it they still ended up together or they went their separate ways. I don't remember. But either way, the ending, I remember feeling bittersweet, and also there was no way they could be together without something tragic happening. Like, it was not going to end well either way. Even if they did end up together, she was a married woman, and her husband Leonard was not going to divorce her just like that, just so she could be with a woman, because not only the fact that she was wanting to divorce him so she could be with another woman, but also, he was not going to want his wife to just walk away for anybody. And it's such a heartbreaking story, and, it doesn't deal with loss in the traditional sense, or grief in the traditional sense, but it kind of does, because these two women who love each other very much can't be together, and the only way they're going to really be together is something bad's going to have to happen. Like, someone's going to end up hurt, either way. Either either not going to be together or Leonard's going to get hurt. And he wasn't the worst guy in the world. So this unfortunately is the best I could do. I mean, although I guess I probably, if I really thought about it, there had to be at least one book that I have here that deals with that kind of stuff, that deals with tragedy. I don't know though, or maybe I have one on here, but I haven't read it yet. Okay, so next is question number 3. Fall is back to school time. Name a non-fiction book that has taught you something. Now, I still have not read enough non-fiction, and I did not want to say the same answer as I said last time. Last year when I did this tag. And not only did I not want to say the same answer, but I was trying to stick with answers where I actually had the book, because I do donate my books. So sometimes I don't always have a book, or sometimes it's even a library book, and that's the reason why I don't have it, because I had to give it back to the library. So the best I could do was I picked Home, a memoir of my early years by Julie Andrews. And as the title implies, it's about her early years, her childhood during World War II, and when she started out on Broadway. So what I could say I learned from this book is how scary it was during the London Blitz, but I guess that one's obvious. But not giving up on your dreams, working hard to get what you want in life, to make, in the importance of family, and also like the behind the scenes of Hollywood and Broadway. Well, mostly Broadway, but we do go into a tiny bit of Hollywood towards the end of the book. Because this is, again, it's the early years, so it's right before she gets the role of Mary Poppins. But we do, stupid fly, but we do get a little bit of that time, when Walt Disney first approached her, and she talks about her encounter with P.L. Travers, and how P.L. Travers was not too keen, because in reality, P.L. Travers was not happy with Mary Poppins, the movie that Walt Disney created. And I don't think, unlike the movie Saving Mr. Banks, I don't think there was any bit of happiness about the movie at all. I don't think she was pleased or content with it at all. Although, I would like to believe that she was, like the movie implies, she was at least happy that they saved Mr. Banks. They saved her father. Because that's what the movie Saving Mr. Banks implied, that it was a metaphor for her father in trying to help her father, who he was a bit, he couldn't keep a job, and if I'm remembering correctly, and he was a bit of an alcoholic. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. So that's really, I feel like I didn't, it's a memoir, so it's just about someone's life, this actress's life. So it's not like you're learning some academic subject, or something important in history, I mean, you get a little bit of you get some history, like history of Broadway and a little bit of World War II history, but it's this one person's perspective on it all. So you obviously do learn things, but it's not the traditional non-learning. It's someone's personal experience you're learning about. So that's sorry, unfortunately that's the best I can do for nonfiction, because I did not read a lot of nonfiction. In fact, I still have to read John Adams by David McCullough, because that is my brother-in-law's book, and I've had it for a few years now, although he said no rush, because he doesn't feel like reading, he doesn't desire to read it right now. Although what I really should do is just get a paperback version and give him back his hardback edition, just get the paperback edition for myself. I just have to bring myself to once to sign, instead of, unless of course it might be at the bookstore, at the used bookstore in the village. Okay, so question number 4. In order to keep warm, it's important to spend time with family. Name a fictional family household. I know I typed that question wrong. I wrote it out wrong, but I was trying to get it done quickly before the person got to the next question. Household that you would want to be part of. So I have the book, but I don't feel like getting it, and that is the Stark family from Song of Ice and Fire series. I know things don't work out for them, and because Eddard gets his head chopped off in the first book, by the end of the first book. Sorry if I spoiled you. And things just do not turn well for it. And I know that in the beginning of the series, Sansa and Arya did not get along. They couldn't stand each other. But they still have this beautiful, very close relationship. I love them, and their father teaches them good morals and values. And I bet Christmas would be great in their household because, they live up north, so they get a really good winter that lasts a long time. But still, if they celebrate Christmas in Westeros, I don't know, because it's, it's in our world, the real world, it's Christian, so I don't know if they would have something equivalent to Christmas, but I think it would be just so fun to, and their little direwolves are adorable until they turn into big wolves and big direwolves, and then hopefully you make friends with them, with the wolves. But I just think it'll be so much fun to spend time with this family. They're such a beautiful, and they're really close despite Sansa and Arya's rocky relationship in the beginning. But they seem like such a fun, warm family to spend time with, especially during this time of year. Okay, so question number 5. The colorful leaves are piling on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. Okay, let's see if I can pick this up. Okay, pick this up. Too many books here. Damn it. Brown, orange, reds, orange, yellow, a little bit of yellow and brown. I'm going to put this down now so I don't drop it. Okay. Yes. No. Up in there. Okay. So question number 6. Fall is the perfect time for a story by the fireplace. Name a book where someone is telling a story. And I said, because I didn't want to say the same one I said last year, I picked Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice, aka the first book in the Fireseer trilogy. And the whole trilogy is our main character Fitz telling his story. He is telling about his life and how he is the bastard of a prince from his world, and how he has the wit, which is able to connect with animals, and how he was raised by the stable master of the kingdom, and how he was trained to be an assassin. And it's a very fun, emotional story, and you feel so bad for the kid, because he's so, always so lonely and, depressed, and he doesn't realize, and sometimes he doesn't realize how much people really care about him, and how he's not alone. And actually, someone presented a very interesting theory, because there's a scene in the beginning when the king his father's father, the king, finally notices Fitz. There's a scene. Okay, well, first, there is a certain magic concept in this world called the skill, which is basically kind of like mind reading and, manipulating someone's thoughts and hearing their thoughts and all that good stuff. Which is a very useful skill, but also very scary, unnerving skill. And it is called the skill. And he communicates, and the king, when he finally notices him, he's all like, it's gonna take too long to find it, but find the actual page. But people believe that there's a possible theory that that maybe the king used the skill on Fitz, and that's why he feels so lonely and alone. Because it was like, so he would only have, like it would make it easier for the king to use him and turn him into an assassin. Because he already feels alone as it is. So I thought that was kind of an interesting theory, and it actually makes sense. But anyway, so yeah, he's telling the story of his life. Just like in Name of the Wind, which was the answer I used last year. Okay, so question number 7. Nights are getting colder. Name a book that is dark and creepy. Okay, I'm going with the obvious answer here, or I should say the obvious author answer here. And that is Stephen King's It. This is one of his books that I have finished, and I think the most creepiest book of his that I finished. This book centers around seven people. They start out as kids, but we also see them as adults. Like, it goes back and forth between them as kids and adults. And they live in the town of Derry, Maine, where all of Stephen King, well, they're not all set in Derry, but all of his stories are set in Maine. And these kids, their town is basically haunted by this entity that takes forms of whatever you're afraid of. And its favorite form is the clown, of this clown known as Pennywise. He calls himself Pennywise. And these 7 people, these 7 kids, who are all different, they're all kind of considered outcasts. Oh, and this is set in the 50s. When they're kids, they are kids in the 50s. And I think when they're adults, it's the 80s. And you know how you have the one kid who happens to be black. You have a kid who's kind of has glasses. He's kind of nerdy, but he, is a bit of a trash talker. He's a bit of a smart mouth. You have the one girl in the group who has an abusive father who, not only is he, he's not just abusive, he's sexually abusive. And I think her mom's in the book, but in the movies, they don't ever show her mom, but I think she is in the book. And she's poor. Her family is very poor. Her dad's a janitor. You have the leader of the group, Billy, who is his brother was one of the victims of Pennywise, and he stutters, and his parents kind of ignore him, and as they're grieving for their other son, and then you have and I don't think I mentioned the black boy's name. The girl's name is Beverly Marsh. The black boy's name is Mike Hanlon, and he lives on a farm. And there's also animosity, not between Mike's parents and the parents of their school's bully, whose name escapes me at the moment. And there's Richie Tozier's the one who wears the glasses, kind of smart mouth. You have Stanley Uris, he is Jewish, and you have Ben Hanscom, who's new in town. He's the fat kid, and he's my favorite because he's so adorable. I feel I love all of them. They're like my children. I want to take care of them, and of course they're older than me in the book, but I think they're older than me in the original story, but I think in the 2017 remake, I think they would probably be my age. I think. Yeah, maybe a little bit older, like maybe closer to my sister's age. And then the final member is, what is his name? Eddie Kasprak, who is a hypochondriac. He has asthma, and he's a bit of a mama's boy. Like his mom keeps him very close, and she's always like, don't take showers with the other boys because you'll get their germs, or don't get an X-ray or you'll get cancer, or like she doesn't want him hanging out with his friends because they'll get him hurt and make him sick, and technically the medicine he has for his asthma is actually a placebo. And there's a whole scene about that in the book where his the guy at the pharmacy who gives him the medicine is like, this isn't real. This is the placebo. This is just water, camphor water. And now in the 2017 movie version, it's his daughter, the pharmacist's daughter, who tells Eddie that it's not legit. So they kind of added that into it. But anyway, so it's like I said, these kids are the only ones who can defeat Pennywise the Clown. And even though as adults they also forget, one of their members, Mike Hanlon, stays behind. And then he is the one, when he realizes Pennywise is killing again, he summons all his friends back, and they all remember, and they end up being the only ones who could defeat this monster. And it's so creepy, and it's so creepy because because Stephen King is such a brilliant writer, you just get lost in the story, and it's like as you're reading, you are like a kid, and it recalls to your memory those things that scared you as a kid. So, I mean, kids I feel like, we're the most vulnerable as kids. Because, we're scared of a lot more. And it's also, I feel like it's easier to scare when we're kids. Especially, and I think that's why Pennywise eats kids. Because they're easier to scare. Because when we're adults, we have very rational, logical thinking minds. We're like, we know that this isn't real, that there is a logical explanation for things. I mean, I think that's why a lot of times in like ghost stories or fantasy, when the kid sees the ghost and tries to tell their parents, are like, oh, you're just letting your imagination run away with you, which that happens. I'm watching Are You Afraid of the Dark from the show from the 90s, where the group of kids tell the ghost stories, and every time they have an episode where there's a ghost story or something, some monster or something, I'm like, I get so frustrated with the parents because they're like, it's just your imagination. It's not real. I'm like, it is real. It's so very frustrating. The only time, But anyway, this is just the fact that it's kids makes it all the more scary and creepy. So this is my creepy read for question number 7, I think it is. Okay, question number 8. So enough time on that question. Question number 8. The days are getting... Oh, wait. Okay, never mind. The days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read. Okay, so I don't read a lot of short, heartwarming reads. Although, I guess I could say the one I just read is kind of heartwarming. I mean, it's scary, but it's also kind of heartwarming, too. And I still have it. It's a library book, actually. But my original answer was The Rosie Project by Graham Simsion. I don't know if I said that right. Which is a rom-com about a guy who has Asperger's, and although he doesn't realize it, and so, which means he's very logical in his thinking and very practical. And he's not very good with social cues, and he's a different way of thinking, essentially. And he is told by a friend that he would make a very good husband. So he decides he needs to find a wife first. And he creates a list of all the qualities he wants in a wife. All the perfect criteria. And the women he interviews, there's always something wrong with them. They always have something that doesn't meet his criteria. And then he is set up by his friend with Rosie, I don't remember what her last name was. And she does not fit his criteria at all. She's a smoker, she's a little bit neurotic and crazy and fun and spontaneous. But then she has decided that, when she's talking to him, she shares her own little pet project that she's trying to find her biological father. So there are 3 possibilities, and because our protagonist, what is his name? I don't remember his name. Our protagonist he is a biologist, I think. He studies DNA for a living. and teaches at the college, at the local college. So she asked him to help her obtain the DNA of the 3 possible donors. And it's all about them working together, going on this little quest, and how she's kind of helping him adapt more to social situations. And it's just a really cute, fun little story. I don't read a lot of rom-coms or anything. I rather just watch them on TV. And I don't know if I get 3 or 4 stars because it was still good and it was still well written. And I liked the characters, and I liked how it was about someone who had Asperger's. I think that's an important, just like any other like subject, that I think just like being more diverse. I think having diverse like people, having main characters with disabilities is also just as important, which I guess that goes with being diverse in your books. And so I think I liked how it was about that. I thought it was very interesting to, have someone like that in this kind of crazy situation. Like, I am actually, because of that, I am also kind of curious about the Kiss Quotient, but that's a book that I would rather just get from the library. But the other book I just realized could potentially be an answer. I mean, it's kind of a scary book also, but it's not like scary as in horror. It's magical realism. It was a popular book, I think a couple years ago. And that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This is a book about this man, I don't think we get his name, returns to his old hometown for a funeral as an adult, and then as he comes home, he is recalling his childhood when he was 7 years old, and his relationship with his neighbor, Letty Hemstock, this little girl who was a couple years older than him, and how she helped him deal with this particular situation, cope with this particular situation where he caught his father, like his mom hired this woman to be his nanny, so she could go to work, and it turns out that the nanny, Ursula Monkton, was having an affair with his father, and he doesn't know how to cope with that. He doesn't understand that, and the way he deals with it is he imagines Ursula Monkton as a monster, like a literal monster, and Letty, her mother and her grandmother must help him send the monster back to where it came from. It's I know that doesn't sound heartwarming per se, but I feel like it's this cute little story about this boy and his relationship with this little girl, and how he defeats the demons in his life, metaphorically speaking, in this, with her help. And I like the magical realism aspect. I think that's part of what makes it heartwarming. And the relationship between him and Letty is very heartwarming too. So maybe this is reaching, but I feel like this is a very heartwarming story. And it's a quick read, so if you have not jumped on the bandwagon yet, I would recommend checking this out. Although I don't think everybody loved the story, but I personally loved it. I can't remember if I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads, but maybe, actually no, I think I gave it 4 stars because the beginning was a little slow and it took me a while to get into what was going on. Like, I was a little confused at the time, and I think that's partly because it is magical realism, and I think for me, magical realism can be confusing at first. Like, even the Raven Cycle, which I do love that series, the beginning of that series was a little confusing for me at first. Okay, so question number 9. I think that's 9. Yeah. The fall luckily returns every year. Name a favorite you'd like to return to. Okay. First, I said the name of the one. I read this a couple, I think it's actually been more than a year since I've read it, and this was such a great story. And like I said earlier, like I mentioned earlier, this is a story about this young man, Quoth, who was telling his story to a chronicler. It's about his experience when his time with his parents before they were killed, when he was on the road, and how he goes to a magic school, like Hogwarts, and how he learns magic and his relationships with friends and this girl that his first love. And it's a very good story. I know not a lot of people like it, but because it's someone is telling their own story, unless he's like Fitz from Assassin's Apprentice, who has a person where you could almost argue he's going through depression. He experienced depression. Wolf is very, laid back, fun kind of person. So, and he's gonna sugarcoat things. He's gonna make his life look more glamorous than it is. I think, and I agree with those people who make that argument that it's a little unfair to be like, oh, I can't stand Quoth, and he makes himself look so badass, and he's almost like a Gary Stu, and all that. But, if you're narrating your own story, yeah, you're gonna make yourself look more awesome than you are. Like, if I was narrating my own story, I probably would, because, my life, I feel like it's kind of boring. I'm like, I go to work, I'll read books, sometimes I've done things that are a little more exciting, like, I've been to Europe, and, I've taken cruises and all that, but at the end of the day, most of my life isn't really exciting, so I would do the same thing, make my life seem more exciting and make me seem a lot cooler than I really am. So I think that's what people need to keep in mind with this book. I still have not read the second one, and like everybody else, I'm kind of annoyed that the third one has not come out yet. But maybe that just means he's working really hard to perfect the story, to make it really good. And I almost feel like I need to read I just need to go ahead and read The Wise Man's Fear, which is the second book. But it depends on how long it's going to take. And the other book I said was A Tale of Two Cities. What is it? One You Like to Read, return to. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. This was my first Charles Dickens book. I did read A Christmas Carol, but that one I was already familiar with, because, if you haven't read the book, you probably at least have seen movie adaptations of the book. But I really enjoyed this book. It's funny, but what actually got me to choose to read this book for a class project, was because on the kids' movie, A Simple Wish, starring Mara Wilson and Martin Short, the little girl's father is in a musical version of A Tale of Two Cities, and for some reason, it made me interested in the story. And I like history, I don't like sitting in the classroom hearing the teacher lecture about it if it's early in the morning. In the afternoon, then when I'm not as tired, then yeah, maybe I can. But this is basically, I think this is about the French Revolution between the Brits and the French. It's both their respective, those are the two, London and Paris are the two cities. And it's like this, what happens during that time, and our main plot is centered around this man named Sidney Carton, who happens to look exactly like this one guy, his friend Charles, who is engaged to the woman that he's in love with, that Sidney's in love with. But Charles kind of gets in trouble with the law, and is about to lose get his head chopped off. But Sidney, like I said, is his twin, so he volunteers to replace Charles, so that Charles and the girl can live happily ever after. But this was a great, beautiful book. Of course, the problem is this is Dickens, so he's very wordy, and that can get kind of tedious after a while, but it's still a very good, interesting story, So it's definitely one I want to reread again at some point soon. I don't know when. But, I have nothing against I like the idea of rereads. The problem is I have so many new books that I have not touched yet, so I feel guilty if I'm rereading a book and I haven't gotten to those books yet. Sorry, I was trying to make sure my page wouldn't turn on me. I don't have to find the page again. Okay, so the last question is, fall is a perfect time for cozy reading nights. Name your favorite cozy reading accessory. So I don't have any specific things. Like, I mean, one of the things is I like to read in my room is sitting on this chair here. So I guess this could technically count. Well, although I guess it's not really an accessory. But I'm technically not supposed to have food and drinks other than water in my room, because then my mom doesn't want it to get on the carpet. You know, she's worried that I'll stain the carpet or something. Although, between you and me, I have secretly brought food up and drink upstairs when my mom's at home. Because sometimes she has work shifts where she will work 2 days a week from 9:30, from 10 in the morning to 10 at night. I believe that's what her schedule is. So anyway, so I don't really have any particular cozy, and I don't like use blankets or anything, even though I have one right here. But this is kind of a new blanket that I've just started to keep out. It's a blanket that came with some pajamas I got. But I don't really use blankets. I might put on a robe or something. So I guess a robe. I could have showed you guys one of my robes, but I ended up picking out a pair of socks. I love wearing socks. I'll wear them in bed, and I and of course, during winter and fall and autumn time, you want to wear socks on your feet to keep your feet warm, because my feet and my hands get really cold very easily. Okay, so that's it. This video is getting too long. I really hope I can upload this video. If not, then I'm just basically wasting my time here and I have to redo this video anyway. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I hope you all are enjoying your reading. And if you want to do this tag, feel free to do it. It's a fun little tag. And perfect for if it's perfect for this time of year, unless you're living on the opposite side of the world, like in Australia, and this is not autumn for you. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye.